Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of Not the Girl Next Door. I'm your host, Meg Reynolds. And in the season premiere episode, I talked all about rebranding for 2026 and how 2025 was the year we really saw women choose themselves. And so if you haven't listened to that episode, I honestly would encourage you to go listen to that one before you actually listen to this episode, because a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is kind of a extension of that episode. Because in that episode, I shared how we're seeing this trend online of here's how you're going to glow up and rebrand in 2026. And I, from my perspective, said that if you feel like you need to rebrand in 2026, it's not about rebranding yourself, it's actually about finding yourself and coming back to yourself. And so that was a lot of what I talked about in that episode, because it comes to a point in your life, I feel like, especially in your 20s, where if year after year you feel like nothing is changing, you can't accomplish any of your goals, like you can't achieve any of your New Year's resolutions, at a certain point, the common denominator is you. And I don't mean this, and I have a feeling that's probably to make some people feel attacked of like, well, what do you mean I'm the problem? I'm not saying you're the problem. I'm saying what you're probably lacking is confidence in yourself. And that is what we're going to talk about today. We are officially 1 month into 2026. So I want you to take a good look at what you wrote down that you wanted to achieve this year, what your goals were, big and small, like the big, crazy, absurd seeming dreams and the things that are feasible. What actions, what steps have you taken, if any, to actually start making sure you're going to achieve those goals this year? You haven't taken any? Oh, again, probably a sign that you're lacking confidence in yourself. Confidence is the reputation that you have with yourself. And as someone who works for herself and is a full-time freelancer, I take my reputation very, very seriously. I have a manager. She pitches me for gigs. I understand that when I go on a gig, I'm not just representing my own reputation. I'm representing her as well. So you need to think of your confidence as the reputation that you have with yourself. Confidence is literally just all about you. It's all about having doubts and still choosing to show up for yourself. And here's the thing, there's true confidence, and then there's arrogance, there's chauvinism. Like arrogance, it's not the direct opposite of confidence, but I want you to think of it as an insecure imitation of it. It's a defense mechanism for anxiety, shame, conflicts of power, some sort of insecurity within oneself. That's what arrogance is. And so if you're seeing that person who is the loudest in the room, they're bragging, showing off, they only talk about themselves, that is arrogance. That is not confidence. You can absolutely talk about your achievements and have pride in them. I know I do. But there is a way to go about it. And it's that person, and probably someone came to your mind who they just rub you the wrong way for some reason, the way they like, and you just think they're so arrogant. And in my opinion, when it comes to confidence, I think the worst piece of advice we see time and time again is fake it till you make it. I think fake it till you make it is more arrogance than it actually is confidence, because fake it till you make it is what leads people to act like they know everything, to pretend that they can do something when they do not have the skill set required to do something. And that's actually what's going to tank your reputation and keep you spiraling in imposter syndrome and all of these other things. It just fake it till you make it is, I think, the thesis of what imposter syndrome is. And that's probably why a lot of people struggle with it, because they're just forcing themselves to keep going, keep pushing, instead of stopping and being like, hey, where is this anxiety coming from? What is it about the situation that I feel uneasy about? Is it because I don't know something? Is it because it's new? Like, it's just feeding into those arrogant imposter syndrome, fear-driven parts of ourself. And confidence, there is a power in saying, I don't have all the skills required here, but I'm going to go learn, and I know I can do it because I'm going to be willing to learn. Do you see the difference, guys? And part of confidence too is just being present where your feet are, letting go of the expectations, letting go of the noise, and having trust within yourself of knowing I'm exactly where I need to be right now. Because for so long, I struggle with that. I'm 27 now, and I actually I don't feel 27. I feel very present, and I feel it's making me feel younger than ever. But for me, where I'm struggling lately, and I'll be so vulnerable with you guys on this, where I'm struggling lately is balancing being present and enjoying my life and not feeling like I'm running out of time, but also recognizing I am getting older and I am approaching 30 and I'm feeling more drive than ever. I literally have been telling all my friends, I want this year to be the year that changes my life. And I have confidence in myself that I know I can achieve those things. So, how do you balance being present where your feet are, being present in the moment and appreciating it and not letting the moments pass you by, but also using every opportunity to drive you forward? It is such a fine line of the drive and the ambition and being present because that's the thing too, and this is why I say confidence is being present where your feet are, because when you get lost in, I've talked about this time and time again on the podcast, but we do have a lot of new people here, so I will talk about it again. But part of confidence is not falling into the what I call the I'll be happy when mindset. It's that mindset of I'll be happy when I get that promotion, make X amount of dollars, go on this trip, buy this certain luxury car. I will be happy when I have some sort of material thing that is outside of my immediate control, and that is where my source of happiness is going to come from. That external validation is going to make me the most happy and confident version of myself, and that is just not the case. And so I struggled with that mindset for so many years, and I think that's why when I look back at my early 20s, I yes, I'm very proud of them because I moved to Nashville and achieved all these things, but I was in such a rush that I didn't appreciate those times as much. And now that I'm 27, I'm kind of grieving those years of, I wish I just slowed down and didn't put so much pressure on myself. And I actually feel like I kind of look younger now than I did back then. Like, yes, back then I had a baby face, but I was so stressed out and like insecure with myself that I feel like it kind of it showed in my looks maybe. And I don't know if that's just, I feel like anybody looking at pictures of me would probably be like, what are you talking about? But I see it. When it comes to confidence, I want you guys to picture your favorite influencer, your favorite creator that you follow, someone who you think is your biggest inspiration that you really, really look up to and you aspire to be like. More than likely, you have heard their origin story before. And I want you to listen to the way that they speak about their origin story, their villain origin story, if you want to call it. Um, they're not telling you the story of what broke them. They're telling you the story of what made them. It wasn't an ending for them, it was a beginning. And I think confidence, you start to build it when you no longer look at your trauma and your pain and your past as the thing that broke you, but instead you start to look at it as the thing that made you. Take, for example, my story and the story behind the podcast. For the longest time, I would wear my traumas like they were some sort of badge of honor. And they were somehow some sort of proof of what I'm capable of and what I was able to survive. But that's the thing is I was just surviving. I was just going through the motions. I was a literal hollow walking shell. And now that my trauma is something I embody and I recognize it's not what defines me, but instead it's just a piece of my story. It wasn't the ending, it was just a beginning. I feel safe again, and my confidence has been able to reemerge from those ashes. And it's reemerged slowly over time. And I don't think confidence is something that you are naturally born with. It is a skill, it is a muscle. Confidence, it's technically a noun, but I want you to start thinking of it like a verb. And verbs it requires action, right? You have to learn the skill of having confidence. So, how do we learn that skill? It starts with the smallest of small choices. It starts with you making your bed in the morning. It starts with your skincare, your self care. It starts with you eating healthy. It starts with you saying you're going to do something and then keeping that promise that you make to yourself. It's in your habits, it's in your water intake, taking deep breaths, making sure you stop and pause. Like, confidence is a learned skill that comes with time, but like anything, I don't think confidence is just like riding a bike. It's not one of those things that you can just stop doing and then let years go by and pick it right back up again. I think confidence is more like a flower or like a house plant. You have to nurture it, you have to tend to it, you have to pay attention to it, you have to be in tune with it. Because confidence is going to ebb and flow, right? You're going to have things and situations and problems that throw you for a loop, that knock you off your confidence. You'll make decisions that you were so sure of, and it turns out to be a mistake. It's in those moments where your confidence is going to be tested. And if you have the tools and skills actually honed and present, you're not going to fall apart the way that you used to. Application is what's key for confidence. Again, I think I said this too in the season premiere, how it does not matter how many podcasts, self-help books, motivational speeches, none of that matters how much you listen to it. Because again, even hearing the inspiration from your favorite creators, none of that is going to change your life without implementing some sort of practices and habits. And that's where I think a lot of people go wrong, just like therapy. Therapy is one of those things that the real work begins outside of your therapist's office. That's how confidence is. Confidence begins when you put down the phone and put down all the inspiration you're consuming and actually start applying it to your real life. I think this is why, too, when I talked about the analog trend in episode 2 of this season, I think that is part of where it's maybe coming from as well, as people's desire to get back in touch with themselves, and rediscover a piece of themselves that you lost. Something else too, when it comes to confident people, and I think oftentimes mistaken piece of confidence is people think that confidence means you're constantly in control. I don't think so. I think sometimes you need to relinquish control in order to have confidence and feel confident. And this is what I mean when I say that, because you're like, I'm not saying throw shit out the door and like just free ball the rest of your life. That's not what I'm saying at all. When you try and control people, situations, things that are not yours to control, they are out of your control, it's coming from a place of fear. Fear that it's not going to work out, fear that you're going to fail, fear that just some sort of fear. And you're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and you're constantly trying to make a situation something it's not. And it's all out of fear. That's not what confidence is. Instead, confidence is being able to recognize what is within your control and what is out of your control, and focus on what you know for sure is in your control. From that is how you're going to build yourself up, build that trust with yourself, and in turn, build confidence in yourself. Because at the root of most insecurities is fear. Fear is the underlying emotion of insecurity. Fear of failure, fear of not being chosen, fear of not being good enough, fear of not being accepted. I want you, if you have felt out of control about a situation lately, or you're worried about something coming up, I want you to think of what that failure would actually look like. Imagine it's the morning after you failed. What are you going to do? What's that day going to look like? What are you going to do differently? What's immediately going to change? More than likely, your life does not look crazy different. And the unknown is scary. That's why we fear it, because what we know is where it's comfortable. But the unknown is only scary because we haven't been exposed to it. So by visualizing what it would actually be like if you failed at something you've tried, and being able to kind of have almost some sort of like dreaming about like exposure therapy, I guess it's a form of exposure therapy, in my opinion. Just visualizing that worst case scenario is going to help you prepare and feel confident to know, okay, even if this failure does happen, I know I'm going to be okay in the end. That's what confidence is. Again, it's knowing what could happen and choosing to trust yourself and try anyways. With confidence too, it breeds the insecurity and fears breed procrastination. The insecurity and fears breed procrastination. That's why if you've had the same damn New Year's resolution year after year after year, i.e., me with writing my book. I've been saying it for the past 2 years and then I haven't done it. That procrastination comes from a fear of failure. I know, and I will own that with myself. But the thing is, to get over that piece of the fear of failure is you need to stop lying to yourself and stop lying to your journal, stop lying about it when you talk about it, like just stop lying. Stop lying about your reality. Stop lying about who you are. Stop lying about what you think. Just be so brutally honest with yourself and others about where you're at. Because the more comfortable you get talking about whatever the situation is, the more confidently you'll be able to navigate it and get through it. I always say I'd rather hear a bitter truth than a sweet lie, and I will die on that hill because eventually you'll hear so many sweet lies that you won't even know what to believe anymore, and you'll start to believe those lies as fact. And if you're constantly lying to yourself, that's just feeding into the fake it till you make it mindset until eventually you're gonna spiral in the imposter syndrome and you're just gonna feel even more lost than where you began. When you're honest with yourself and with others, it's a way to build trust with yourself. It's a way to hold yourself accountable. And holding yourself accountable and understanding where you went wrong and where you contributed to something is what's going to build the confidence in yourself as well. Because when you're able to do that, you're no longer going to need the external validation that you're getting from others when you do kind of sugar, like fluff things up a little bit. Perfectionism, too, with confidence, I think is an important piece of this conversation, right? Because with a lot, I think of women especially, we struggle with this perfectionism. And how many times as a woman, if you're listening this, have you said, well, I might as well just do it myself? You just take charge and you didn't do well with group projects in school because you knew people were going to let you down. So you're like, well, I'm just going to do it myself because I know I'm going to do it right. And you just kind of steamroll your way in situations and you're like, no one's going to do it as well as I can. So I'm just going to, you're basically turning into Monica Geller from Friends. And that need for perfectionism, that need for control over everything has to be so meticulously in line. That is all a trauma response. Because you think if you can be put together enough, control every little aspect, because you think if you are just put together enough and you control every little aspect of things and everything is so picture perfect, then nothing and no one can surprise you or hurt you. Perfectionism is literally just another form of control. Perfectionism is literally just another form of control that is rooted in fear because you're striving for because that strive for excellence is more about controlling perception than actually achieving anything. And it's not your fault that you're like that. This is something I struggled with for a long time. It's a big thing that I've been working on in therapy is not needing to control everything, not being so type A, being able to go with the flow more. I know for me, I think this is part of why I've been grieving my younger years so much is because I was so high strung and just could not go with the flow. Everything had to be so perfectly planned out. And I think and now that I'm more like that, it's not even just about how freeing it is, but I really enjoy things more. And also I think it's just more whimsical to live like that. And I feel more youthful and more innocent when I live like that. And so I think that's part of why, I look at my early 20s so differently and I feel like I felt older because of how much I needed to control things. Um, but at a young age, just like me, you were probably taught that your worth is tied to your achievements. And, over time, your mind just uses this as a way to create safety. But here's the thing about that. And it keeps you stuck in this cycle of needing external validation. And over time, that just erodes your confidence. I know it did for me because again, if I got an A on something, it wasn't enough. I had to get an A plus. Like it feeds also into that I'll be happy when mindset. When you achieve this thing, I'll get the validation that I'm craving and then I will feel like myself. All of these things just really tie in together. But you have to shift your mindset when it comes to being a perfectionist, because messy actions are not inherently failures. I said this in the season premiere, but if you do something perfectly the first time, it means that you waited too long to do it. And for the purposes of this conversation about when it comes to anything, creating, starting business, whatever, that really rings true. If anything, I have learned the best creatives, the best projects come from some sort of messy action. They come from the mess of learning, the mess ups, the mistakes. Like one of my favorite photographs of all time that I've ever taken is a happy accident. And it was basically a flash misfire that I will forever strive to try and recreate, but I can't recreate it because it was such an imperfect moment where I took a photo as another photographer who was also in the room had a flash that was going off at the same time. And it just created this perfect center line on my artist, Lou, who's actually also been a guest on the podcast. And that photo is one of my favorites of all time. And it's because I'm not going to be able to recreate it because it was such a messy and imperfect moment. That's why I'm saying messy actions are not inherently failures. I have found that the version of myself that is the most confident and the most sure of myself has come out of me relinquishing control of the external, of the things that I have literally no power over. And I instead used that same energy and focused it on myself and focused on what was in my control. And that has been the biggest game changer of my life. This part, some of you guys are not going to like because it is a hard conversation about appearance. And I think when a lot of times, obviously, this most of this conversation I've focused on internal confidence, but I do think it's important if we're going to talk about confidence, we need to talk about confidence in our appearance. I don't just mean our looks, I mean our appearance because they are different. If I were talking about looks, I would literally be talking about just purely physical beauty. But confidence in your appearance is everything. It's how your presence reads when you walk in the room. And I don't want to just feed into beauty standards of society, but you can tell when someone walks into a room if they take care of themselves. And those people that feel so effortless when they walk in the room and you think that they just rolled out of bed, actually they have probably spent hours and hours and hours perfecting their self-care routines because what you do in private is going to show up in public. Your day-to-day habits, your routines, those are the things that are going to make you more beautiful. And I don't mean just in the physical sense. I mean in your overall appearance. When you put on, what they say, look good, feel good. And I don't mean that again in the form of societal beauty standards. I just mean in having a strong appearance, putting on an outfit that you feel comfortable and good in. Like brushing your hair in the morning, taking care of yourself, having some sort of proper routine that is going to make you feel calm and at ease because also calmness, your cortisol is under control, then you're less inflamed. Like that is what I mean when I'm talking about appearance. Because beauty and confidence, they start within ourselves and then that's what radiates outwards. That's what people pick up on. That's the energy people pick up on. So, how you show up for yourself is going to matter and it's going to bleed into how you show up in every other aspect of your life. Because at the end of the day, if you can't even bother to show up for yourself, to have a proper skincare routine and take care of yourself and get your ass to the gym, how are you going to have the confidence to show up for yourself in one of the biggest work meetings of your life, in taking the risk to, create a podcast or do something else? If you don't have the discipline and the motivation to take care of yourself in private, how are you going to have the confidence to show up in public? Because confidence too is what's going to help you translate your personal brand. I talk about personal branding all the time. You guys know I've had to build a personal brand. I did it for this podcast and it's bled into my work day to day because as creative director for artists, I'm helping them create their personal brand. And when you have confidence in yourself, you're going to be able to create a personal brand that actually truly aligns instead of creating a personal brand that you are looking again externally for that validation, and you're looking externally for the inspiration for. I can't tell you how many times, if I had $1 for every time I had this conversation with a client, I would be a millionaire and never have to work again. And it's that I like every time a client sends me their inspiration and their mood boards, I have to ask them, well, what do you like and what don't you like about this? They're like, I don't know. I just want to recreate it. I'm like, no, we're not going to recreate it. What do you like? What do you not like? What feels most authentically you? And let's pull from that. Because again, you're not going to be able to create a true personal brand if your brand is literally just copycatting other people on the internet. That's not what a personal brand is. The content may go viral, it may look beautiful, but that's not going to build your confidence. Again, that's the whole fake it till you make it thing. So, when you're confident in yourself, you should be able to answer the following questions, again, honestly, and have this hard conversation with yourself. So, first, ask yourself, what are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What kind of friend am I? What is my favorite thing about myself? What traits do I admire in others that I see in myself? If I were living my dream life, what would an average day look like? Like an average Tuesday, what would that look like to me? And it doesn't need to be this grand, I'm a millionaire, whatever. Like genuinely, what does your perfect Tuesday look like? What are my 3 pillars? Like, what are 3 ways I want to be known by people? Not needing the external validation, but if I'm doing my job and I'm translating my personal brand, this is what people think of when they think of me. Your confidence is going to translate into you being able to build your personal brand. Because if you're just sitting there and you're wanting to be a content creator, you're wanting to be a podcaster, you're wanting to do anything, and you can't sit down and ask yourself and ask and answer the question of who am I? And that is a problem, because when we ask ourselves the question, who am I? That's a very open ended question, right? And I think that question makes a lot of people really uncomfortable. For me, when I say, who am I can sit here and list all the labels, right? I'm a photographer, I'm a videographer, I'm a podcaster, I am an artist, I'm a writer. Like, I can list all these labels, or I can sit here and say I'm a friend, I'm a mother, I'm not a mother. Well, I guess I am a mother to Rocco. I'm a daughter. Like, that's what I meant to say, is that I'm a daughter. But I can sit here and list all these labels, but they don't actually say anything about who I am. At my core, I am somebody who is creative. I am kind. I am passionate. I am empathetic. I am ambitious. I am a woman who sees the world and wants to explore everything that it has to offer. I could sit here and go on and on and on about who I am. But at the end of the day, if I'm not showing you who I am, what I say doesn't matter. If what I am doing does not align with who I supposedly say I am, it doesn't matter. Because again, all that will be coming from is a place of insecurity, fake it till you make it, imposter syndrome, all of these things. I wouldn't be being authentic. And so you shouldn't need to just be able to answer the question of who am I? You should be able to show people who you are, and they should be able to answer that question for you. When it comes to confidence, like I said, it's a learned skill. It's not something that we are inherently born with. And unfortunately, not everybody grows up in an environment where confidence is fostered, where you're encouraged, where you are lifted up. For me, I was lifted up, but I was still made to feel like my achievements were part of my self worth. And that, is something that I had to unlearn over time. And so, if you are someone who is really struggling with your confidence, first and foremost, I need you to forgive yourself for not knowing what only time could teach you. Forgive yourself for the ways you failed to show up for yourself. Forgive yourself for the ways maybe you self sabotaged. Forgive yourself for all of those things. And instead, use those as your origin story. Use those moments as, this isn't my breaking point. This is just the beginning. And here's where I'm going to start writing the new story of my life. Something else too with confidence, I said at the start of this episode how there's confidence and then there's arrogance. Arrogance is loud and obnoxious, where I think confidence is actually silence. Just like in love, confidence is about how it shows up sometimes in the quiet moments. Because you should not need to over explain yourself. You should not need to constantly talk about your achievements in order to get that external validation, right? The most confident people in my life who I truly look up to and I truly get inspiration from, you would never know the insane shit that they have achieved. You would never know just by having a conversation with them how much how talented they are, because they are truly just so humble and they are fantastic at connecting with others, and because they're confident in themselves and they know who they are. With confidence too, like I said, it's a verb, it's a learned skill. Your self-esteem, your self-worth are directly tied to the decisions that you make in your life. It's not your traumas, it's not your relationships, it's not your friendships, it's not your social status, your career. It is you and your decisions. That is what is going to determine your value as a person. And that is what's going to build your confidence. None of the external things that we are taught. You know how they say after high school, none of that matters? It's the same thing with the rest of your life. Your college doesn't matter. Like, those decisions themselves aren't what define you, it's how you show up in those decisions. And once you realize that, your life is going to change. None of like no person can determine who you are as a human being just by knowing superficial traits about you, by being able to list stats off about you. True confidence isn't about bragging or bravado. It's the actions that do the talking. Because at the end of the day, there's a big difference between performing confidence and actually feeling it. And saying, oh, I'm just going to fake it till I make it, that is performing confidence. That's performative being performative again in your own life. That's going to keep you stuck in that cycle of seeking the external validation. It's going to keep you stuck in chasing the approval of others, probably people who you don't even actually like. Because at the end of the day, you'll hit a certain point where you're going to sit back and be like, what am I doing all this for? Like, I don't even like this version of myself that I've become. And so confidence is at its core really just about making sure you're staying true to yourself as well and being your most authentic self. And I think when we look at confidence that way, it is going to make it seem so much less unattainable. Because I think, too, with a piece with confidence is sometimes confidence almost seems gate kept. And I don't know if you guys are going to understand what I mean when I say this, but sometimes confidence feels like you have to earn it. And you do, you have to work at it. But it's what I mean when I say earn it is like almost like you don't feel worthy of feeling confident because you don't look a certain way or make a certain amount of money or have certain material things. And so you think confidence is this like gate kept thing. It's like the popular kids in high school, they're the most confident ones. But you don't get to be confident because you're not like them. Do you see what I mean? And so confidence, anybody can be confident. And I think everyone should have confidence in themselves. But if the reason that those people feel confident is more than likely they're performing it because it's the external validation. If you took it all away, what would they be left with? And so I ask yourself, if you took away from your life all of the external validation you currently have, what would you be left with? Would you still feel confident in yourself if you were no longer getting that external praise? Can you sit in the silence with yourself and talk to yourself in the mirror and say things that are positive? Or is it all negative? Because again, too, confidence, like I said, it starts from in here. So if you're looking in the mirror and you don't like what you see and you can't say anything nice about yourself, you're constantly putting yourself down. Well, baby, you're dead in the water before you even began. Right, Rocco? Guys, I think this is just going to be his thing every episode now where he just like sits in my lap like this. He loves this blanket. Thank you, Anthropology. They wish they sent it to me, but they did not. But it is Rocco and mine's favorite blanket. And it matches my sweater and the podcast branding colors. Hello, branding. We know I love that. Um, but please stop licking me, sir. I love you so much. But that is all for this week's episode of Not the Girl Next Door on confidence. I really encourage you guys to, if you are struggling with your own confidence this year and you haven't taken any steps in January to start achieving your New Year's Eve goals, I want you to sit and journal and ask yourself what it is that is holding you back. Ask yourself what steps you could take immediately today to start working towards your goals. And then start doing them. Write it all down. be so brutally honest with yourself about why you think it is you haven't achieved certain things or haven't worked towards certain things, if it does come from a place of insecurity and fear, and then start confronting it head on. Because again, writing about it in your journal, great habit. Being that is the place for you to be so brutally honest with yourself about the highs, the lows, and everything in between. But again, then we have to take the actions. You can't just leave it on paper. Start doing the work. We are only 1 month into this year. There is so much time. I don't want to see you guys let another year go by where you have not achieved any of your goals that are perfectly within your reach. Sometimes the only thing standing in the way of your dreams is yourself. I know I have said this on the podcast before when I'm talking about my book, and I'm still doing it, and I am beating myself over the head with it. And I am determined that this year is going to be the year that changes my life. And I'm going to do that hard thing that I have always wanted to do because it's been a lifelong dream. But out of fear and insecurity of failing and it not being good enough, I haven't done it. And it's sat there for years. This book has been in the works for a decade, guys. I wrote this story originally back in 2017. It is now 2026. For the past 2 years, I have been saying I'm going to work on it. I even did a TikTok series where I was like 100 days to my first draft. I think I failed at like day 11. This is going to be the year that changes my life because I have confidence in myself and I have confidence in you and your abilities. Now, do you have the confidence in yourself and your abilities? Only you can answer that question. But that is all for this week's episode of Not the Girl Next Door. Make sure you subscribe and leave us a 5-star review wherever you are listening. Follow us on Instagram at Not the Girl Next Door podcast. Also, if you are someone who is struggling with your confidence, I think a great way to get in tune with yourself and get better at journaling, if that's something you think that would help, is signing up for the snail mail club that I run, the Tough Love Club. Every month you get one of my prints mailed to you guys, along with a couple journal prompts that are related to that month's theme. Obviously, as we enter the month of February, this month's theme is all about love and relationships, but more going forward. Hell, maybe there'll even be a month where it's themed on confidence. But make sure you sign up, and I will see you guys next week for another episode. Bye for now. Cool. Can you move, buddy, please? Can you move?